Hi, I'm David Overton. I'm the author of Undercard, and I'm just so excited to be part of the first ever virtual Thriller Fest. And for today, I'm gonna share some of my thoughts on writing thrillers. So one of the ways you can set up a thriller is you can have a character in a pretty normal, everyday situation. You know, like it's night, they're at their computer, just sitting at their desk, just a calm situation. And that this protagonist doesn't realize that they're actually in danger. They think they're fine, but the reader knows that the reader knows they're in danger, and that this is what creates suspense. But it's very important to prolong that tension. You don't want to get rid of it right away. You want it to, there's a moment of calm afterwards that the reader almost thinks that the protagonist is now safe, that they're out of the woods, and that then, the violence when oh! It's very important. It's very important that your protagonist goes through struggle, and that this creates empathy for the character. But despite all that struggle, hope seems lost. But miraculously, the character finds a way to fight back. Scarred, damaged, but stronger for the experience. The character lives on to fight another day. That's one way to write a thriller. Thank you.
Hi, my name is KP Kyle. I'm one of the ITW class of 2019 debut authors. My book Sync came out last year. And so I was invited to participate in this little video panel offering some tips or some bits of advice on how to write a thriller. So the first bit of advice that I have, which is not about writing a thriller per se, it's just about writing, is this. If you have not yet written your novel and you've got some ideas but you haven't put them down yet because you're still sort of in the planning phase, or because you haven't had the time yet, or because you're feeling intimidated by how much work there is between step one and step the end, then I have this to say. Stop. Just stop procrastinating, sit down and start writing. It's not going to be easier to do it tomorrow. You're not going to have more time tomorrow. You're not going to have more time next week. You will literally never have a time in your life when there's nothing that's going to distract you. There's nothing going to take away your attention. So you just need to sit down and do it. You're not going to finish it now. You're not going to finish it this week or this month or maybe this year. But if you do a little bit every day and you put aside the distractions and you just focus on the task at hand and you don't let yourself be sort of taken away by some other I'm sorry, hang on. I just got to get this real quick. Hang on. Sorry. The thriller-oriented tip that I have for you is this: creating tension through inconsistencies. Consider, for example, the unreliable narrator, a character whose personality or history or motives may not be entirely as it seems. Maybe it's an intentional distortion of perception, or maybe it's not, especially if your story has an element of the supernatural or the fantastic or the almost but not quite science. So to use a very basic example, you might have a character who talks about her black dog, like this one, black dog, say hi. But then later on, she makes a remark about how she's got all of this white fur on her black dress. It doesn't jive, and it raises the possibility that something's wrong, that somebody might be lying or confused or even deranged. It just, even if it's something very minor in the background, it gives you the impression that maybe there's something wrong. Because remember, it's only a plot hole if it's not intentional. Anyway, that's all I got. Best of luck with your endeavors, and I look forward to seeing everybody at Thriller Fest next year. Bye.
Hi everyone, my name is Trion, and I am so excited to be participating in the first ever virtual Thriller Fest. Like the other contributors to this video, I'm a member of the 2019 debut authors class, so I was up on the stage last year, and I was fortunate enough to get a second book published recently. Let the Guilty Pay came out on July 4th, and today I wanted to share some of the tips that I use to create a suspenseful story that also has good pacing and really moves. So my first tip is, as soon as you can, page 1 if possible, introduce something lurking in the background of your story. Now, that something in a murder mystery can be as easy as there's a killer on the loose. But for some stories, if it's not as direct as that, it can just be a secret, something subtle like that. You know, a character is gonna have his secret exposed, something like that. What you have to make sure to do is to have that something be threatening. You know, there has to be a threat to the main character, and that's how you start building your tension. So once you get to that point, you may also want to introduce something called Chekhov's gun. If you haven't heard about this, it's a weapon that you introduce early that you know is going to be used later. Now, it doesn't have to necessarily be a gun. That's just, you know, what we say. It could be any weapon. Say a really big kitchen knife. That works just fine too. So after you've introduced these things early, you have to make sure that you keep the attention on every single page. And that is really very important, because if you lose that tension, you may just lose the reader. So how do you keep that up for, you know, 400-page manuscript? Well, one thing that I like to do is you take a look at the first few paragraphs or the first few sentences of each paragraph, or the first few paragraphs of each scene. Sorry about that. You take a look at them, and the first thing you do is you chop those suckers right off. You just get rid of them, because almost all writers take a few paragraphs to really get into every scene, and you want to try to drop people right into it. And then you do the same thing, and you look at the last few paragraphs of your scene, and chances are you can cut those things right off too. And if you do that, you may not be able to do for every single scene, but if you try, you're going to find that your story is going to move quite a lot better. Now, another way to think about suspense is to keep posing questions to your readers and then answering them. You know, some of the questions can be small and answered relatively soon thereafter, maybe even in the next chapter. But you always want to make sure you're posing questions and answering questions. Now, you do need to make sure that you're saving the big questions surrounding that something lurking that you introduced earlier. That has to be done as close to the end as you can, right at the climax. Now, because I'm a journalist, I'm going to remind you to make sure to answer the questions who, what, where, when, and why.
You know why.
Hello, Thriller Fest 2020. I'm August Norman, member of the 2019 debut class, as well as author of Come and Get Me, a Caitlin Bergman novel, and the follow-up in the series, Sins of the Mother, coming out this September. I'm honored to be back here among friends, even though we can't be together at this time. Part of the joy of an event like this is obviously the camaraderie and the stuff.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's good.
Yeah,
I'm doing my video.
Yeah, okay, but I have a Zoom session with my grad school, and he's got a pretty full diaper. We talked about this.
Yeah, sorry. I'll be right with you.
Okay, love you.
Love you. Obviously, we're all struggling with a lot right now. So what do I think makes a great thriller, let alone a great thriller series? For me, what really drives it home is the characters. I have to admit, I've read thousands of these, and when I think back to them, I don't necessarily remember the plots as much as I remember the characters. I mean, how much jazz have we listened to with Harry Bosch? How many bones have we analyzed with Tempe Brennan? What have we eaten with Hannibal Lecter?
Honey?
Yeah, baby.
Please.
Okay. So, what makes characters special for me? Well, then I think of it in two ways, and that is in particulars and in wholes, and of course that's wholes with a W. So what are particulars? For me, the things that take a character from weird, can't relate to everyday life are the small things, their habits, their hobbies, the amount of caffeine it takes them to get up in the morning, the cigarettes they can't quit, the exes they don't stop texting, the joys and the pains that these particulars bring along the journey to catch a serial killer or to finally close a cold case. Those are the things that take them from superheroes that I can't relate to everyday people. Plus, it gives valuable touchstones for loyal readers of the series to check in with and enjoy throughout.
Honey, seriously.
Sorry, I just need to talk about my holes.
What kind of video are you making?
I'm almost done. Okay, love you.
Love you.
Okay, so the holes. What do I mean by holes? Well, if a person goes through this trauma in episode after episode or book after book, eventually they're going to be torn in two. Now, there's the one part of them that's the hero that's always going to step up to the plate no matter what, well, even at their own expense. So the other half that would make them whole is the part that grounds them in humanity and keeps bringing them back towards the light. So Harry Bosch has his daughter, Maddie. Jeffrey Deaver's Lincoln Rhymes from the Bone Collector series. He's an amazing genius criminologist, but unfortunately his pride leads him to lose control of his use of his body. It's not until Emilia Sachs, a patrol officer who's able to connect with people and victims, does he come back toward humanity and back towards wholeness, finally allowing him to go after the Bone Collector. So look for the dark side of your characters, and then look for people and events that will bring them back toward the light and back towards wholeness again.
August.
Yeah. Sorry, I want to talk about tension.
Yeah, well, if you don't take care of this baby right now, I will kill you. How is that for tension?
That's a really good example. It's a lot of fun being first-time parents while quarantined in an apartment. I don't think she's actually gonna kill me. You're not gonna kill me, are you?
Love you.
Okay, we should go do this. Since thrillers are about what's going to happen rather than what did happen, like in a traditional mystery, it's important to constantly build and release tension. Yikes. Somebody just released a whole bunch of tension. Okay, so lots of types of tension to play with. You got violence, you got sex, office dynamics, home dynamics, legal gray areas. Don't forget a ticking clock. Yikes, better move fast. A ticking clock is a literary device that forces your protagonist to S or get off the P. No, I can say pot, it's legal in California now. A ticking clock forces your protagonist to take chances they might otherwise have avoided, and either they die in the process, or save the day.
Gotta kind of create that tension before it
Came out last year.
You lose that tension, you can lose the reader for good. Shit.
So you got lots of types of tension to play with.